Jake Morrison stood at the large window of the space station, watching alien ships come and go. The massive metal giants moved through space with perfect control, making his own human ship look small and clumsy. He pressed his hand against the cold glass and sighed. 3 years he had been the only human officer in the Galactic Defense Corps, and every single day reminded him how different he was. The communication device on his belt buzzed. "All senior officers report to Briefing Room 7 immediately," came the cold voice of Admiral Zephyrian. Jake straightened his uniform and walked through the long corridors of Nexus Prime Station. Other officers passed him without looking. Some whispered behind his back in languages he barely understood. The briefing room was already full when Jake arrived. Admiral Zephyrian stood at the front, his crystal body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns on the walls. The Valdris were beautiful creatures, but their beauty was cold and sharp like broken glass. Around the room sat the other senior officers. Commander Thylos coiled his long reptilian body in a special chair, his yellow eyes never blinking. High Counselor Veliana floated above her seat, her pale blue skin glowing softly as all Etherians did when they were thinking hard. Jake found an empty chair in the back corner. As he sat down, he heard Commander Thylos hiss softly to another officer. "Why is the ape here? This is serious business." Yes. Several others made quiet sounds that Jake had learned meant laughter in their languages. Admiral Zephyrian raised one of his forearms for silence. His voice was like music played on crystal bells. "We have discovered something that changes everything. 3 days ago, our deep space sensors found an ancient weapon cache on the dead world of Kepler 442b. This weapon is called the Void Reaper." A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a dark planet covered in ruins and strange metal structures. The weapon itself looked like a massive black crystal surrounded by rings of unknown metal. "This device can destroy entire star systems," the Admiral continued. "According to our ancient records, it was built by a race that lived millions of years ago. They are all dead now, but their weapon remains. We are not the only ones who know about it. The Saurian Confederation and the Etherian Collective have also sent fleets to claim it." Commander Thylos uncoiled himself and spoke in his rough, hissing voice. "My ships are already moving. We will take the weapon before the others arrive." High Counselor Veliana's musical voice filled the room. "Violence is not always the answer. Commander, perhaps we can speak with the ancient systems that guard it. My people have ways of talking to old machines." "Both of your plans will fail," Admiral Zephyrian said. "The planet has defenses that have been active for millions of years. Every ship that has tried to land has been destroyed. Every attempt to communicate with the systems has been ignored. This will require a different approach." Jake stood up. Every head in the room turned to look at him. He felt his face grow warm, but he spoke anyway. "Admiral, I volunteer my ship and crew for this mission." The silence that followed was broken by sounds Jake recognized as laughter from a dozen different species. Commander Thylos made a sound like steam escaping from a broken pipe. "The human wants to die, how entertaining." High Counselor Veliana's glow became brighter, which Jake knew meant she was amused. "Captain Morrison, your courage is admirable, but foolish. This task requires beings of greater evolutionary development than your species possesses." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "With respect, Counselor, I have studied the data from the planet. Your approaches will not work because you are thinking like advanced civilizations. Sometimes the simple way is the right way." Admiral Zephyrian's crystal body made a sound like wind chimes. "Explain yourself, human." Jake stepped forward and pointed at the hologram. "You are planning to use your biggest ships and strongest weapons. Commander Thylos wants to sneak in with his best soldiers. Counselor Veliana wants to use psychic powers to talk to the machines. But look at the pattern of the defenses. They get stronger when you use more force. They detect stealth technology easily. They resist mental contact. What if they are not trying to keep everyone out? What if they are testing people?" The room fell quiet. Jake continued. "The ancient race built this as a test. They wanted to make sure only the right kind of person could use their weapon. All of your advanced technology and special abilities might be exactly what they were trying to keep out." Commander Thylos made his steam sound again. Primitive thinking from a primitive species. You know nothing about warfare, ape? Maybe not, Jake said. But I know something about being underestimated. Admiral Zephyrian studied Jake for a long moment. Very well, Captain Morrison. You may take your ship, but only as support. Stay far from the main action. Try not to die too quickly. More laughter filled the room. Jake nodded and walked toward the door. As he left, he heard High Counselor Veliana say, "Perhaps we should take bets on how long the human lasts." Jake made his way back through the station corridors toward the docking bay where his ship waited. The UNS Defiance was small compared to the alien vessels, but she was fast and tough. More importantly, she was crewed by humans who understood how he thought. He found his officers waiting for him in the ship's briefing room. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes sat at attention, her dark hair pulled back in the regulation style. She had given up a promotion in the Earth Defense Force to serve as his first officer, and Jake never forgot that sacrifice. Chief Engineer Carlos Rodriguez was bent over a data pad, probably already working on modifications to their systems. Dr. Amanda Foster looked up from her medical reports, her green eyes curious about what the meeting had revealed. Tactical Officer Ryan Carter was the youngest of them all, barely 25, but his piloting skills were better than most alien computer systems. "Well?" Lisa asked. "What did they want?" Jake told them about the mission and the ancient weapon. He explained how the alien commanders had reacted to his volunteer offer and their plans to keep the human ship away from the real action. Carlos looked up from his datapad. "So they think we are too stupid to handle this weapon?" "Something like that," Jake said. Ryan Carter leaned forward. "Captain, what if you are right about it being a test? What if the reason all their fancy technology fails is because the ancient race built it to respond to something else?" Dr. Foster nodded slowly. "I have been studying the archaeological data from similar sites. There are patterns that suggest the ancient races value different things than our current galactic civilizations do. They seem to care more about individual courage and creativity than about technological advancement." Lisa Hayes stood up. "So what are our orders, Captain?" Jake looked at each of his officers. These people had followed him across the galaxy, putting their careers at risk to serve under the only human in the Galactic Defense Corps. They deserved to know the truth. "Our official orders are to stay back and provide support," he said. "But I have a feeling we might need to do more than that. Are you all willing to trust me on this?" "Always," Lisa said without hesitation. Carlos grinned. "I did not come this far to watch aliens have all the fun." Dr. Foster nodded. "I want to see what these ancient people were really like." Ryan Carter was already moving toward the pilot station. "When do we leave?" Jake felt something he had not felt in months. Pride. Not in himself, but in his crew. These humans understood something the galaxy had forgotten. They were willing to risk everything for each other and for what they believed was right. "We leave in 6 hours," Jake said. "Get some rest. I have a feeling this mission is going to change everything." As his crew dispersed to prepare their ship, Jake received a private message on his personal communicator. It was from Admiral Helen Clark back on Earth. Her face appeared on the small screen, looking tired and worried. "Jake, I know you volunteered for this mission. I also know what the other species think of us. This is bigger than just finding an ancient weapon. The Galactic Alliance is watching how humans perform. If you fail, it could mean the end of our membership. Everything we have worked for could be lost." The message ended, leaving Jake alone with the weight of his decision. He walked to his quarters and sat on his small bed. Outside his window, he could see the alien fleets preparing to leave. Massive ships that could destroy planets were getting ready to fight over a weapon that could destroy star systems. In a few hours, he would take his small human ship into that battle. The alien commanders expected him to fail quickly and quietly. They saw him as a joke, a primitive creature playing at being a real officer. Jake Morrison smiled grimly. He had been underestimated his entire life. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn what that really meant. The journey to Kepler 442b took 5 days through hyperspace. Jake spent most of that time studying every piece of data about the planet and its defenses. The ancient world looked dead from space, its surface covered in cracked rock and the broken remains of cities that had been ruins for millions of years. But the energy readings told a different story. Deep under the surface, powerful machines still worked, waiting and watching. Lisa Hayes found Jake in his quarters on the third day, staring at the holographic display of the planet. "You should eat something," she said, setting down a tray of food. "And sleep. When was the last time you slept?" Jake rubbed his tired eyes. "I keep thinking I am missing something important. Look at these defense patterns. Every ship that has tried to land in the last 50 years has been destroyed, but not immediately. The defenses let them get close first, like they are studying them." "Maybe that is exactly what they are doing," Lisa said. She sat down next to him and pointed at the data. "What if you were right about it being a test? What if the ancient machines are trying to understand what kind of people are coming for their weapon?" Before Jake could answer, the ship's communication system activated. "Captain Morrison to the bridge immediately," came Ryan Carter's excited voice. Jake and Lisa hurried to the bridge where they found the rest of the crew gathered around the main display. Carlos Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station with a big smile. "Captain, you need to see this. We just dropped out of hyperspace and the other fleets are already here." The main screen showed the space around Kepler 442b filled with warships. The Valdris fleet hung in perfect formation, their crystal ships reflecting starlight like floating diamonds. Each ship was 3 times the size of the UNS Defiance, and their weapons could level mountains. Admiral Zephyrian's flagship sat in the center, surrounded by 12 smaller vessels. On the other side of the planet, the Saurian Confederation fleet coiled through space like metal serpents. Commander Thylos commanded 30 ships designed for stealth and quick strikes. Their hulls were dark and covered in sensors that could detect a whisper from across a solar system. High above the planet's north pole, the Etherian collective maintained their position with ships that seemed to be made of light itself. High Counselor Veliana's vessel pulsed with soft blue energy, surrounded by smaller craft that moved without any visible engines. "They are all keeping their distance," Dr. Foster observed. "No one wants to be the first to approach the planet." Jake studied the tactical display. "What have they tried so far?" Ryan Carter pulled up the sensor logs. "The Valdris started with long-range bombardment 3 hours ago. They fired their most powerful weapons at the planet's surface. Watch this." The screen showed energy beams striking the planet's surface, but instead of creating explosions, the beams simply disappeared. The planet's shields absorbed every shot and seemed to grow stronger with each attack. "The Saurians tried next," Ryan continued. "They sent in their best stealth ships to land small teams on the surface. The display showed dark shapes moving toward the planet, barely visible even to advanced sensors. But as soon as they entered the atmosphere, bright lights appeared around them. Ancient defense drones, sleek and fast, swarmed the Saurian ships. The battle was over in minutes. Finally, the Etherians tried their psychic approach," Dr. Foster added. "They attempted to communicate with the planet's AI systems." Jake watched as the Etherian ships pulsed with mental energy directed at the planet. For a moment, it seemed like they might succeed. Then the planet responded with a burst of energy that sent the Etherian ships spinning away from each other. Several of the smaller vessels were still drifting, their crews unconscious from psychic feedback. "All 3 approaches failed," Jake said quietly. "Just like I predicted." Carlos looked at his captain with concern. "So what do we do? If their advanced technology cannot get through the defenses, how can we?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he smiled. "We do exactly what they expect us to do. We approach, directly, with no tricks and no special technology." Lisa stared at him. "Jake, that sounds like suicide." "Does it?" Jake asked. "Or does it sound like honesty?" Before anyone could answer, the communication system crackled to life. Admiral Zephyrian's crystal voice filled the bridge. "Captain Morrison, maintain your position in the outer system. Do not approach the planet under any circumstances." Jake activated the response channel. "Understood, Admiral. We will maintain position." But as soon as he closed the channel, he turned to Ryan. "Take us in." Ryan's hands flew over the controls. Course plotted for direct approach to the planet's surface. "Jake," Lisa said urgently, "you are disobeying direct orders from the Admiral." "Yes, I am," Jake replied calmly, "and in about 10 minutes, we will either be dead or we will prove that being human means something." The UNS Defiance broke formation and headed directly toward Kepler 442b. Within seconds, every ship in the 3 fleets was tracking their movement. Jake could imagine the alien commanders staring in disbelief at their screens. "Incoming transmission from the Valdris flagship," Lisa reported. "Ignore it," Jake said. "The Saurians are hailing us too." "Ignore them all." Dr. Foster was studying her instruments. "Captain, I am reading some very strange things. The planet's energy signature is changing as we approach. It is almost like it is responding to us specifically." Carlos looked up from his engineering station. "The defense grid is activating, but it is not targeting us, it is scanning us." "Scanning for what?" Ryan asked. "I think it is trying to understand what we are," Dr. Foster said. "The energy patterns match some theoretical scans I have seen in human archaeological databases. It is looking for something specific." The ship entered the planet's atmosphere without any resistance. The ancient defense drones that had destroyed the Saurian stealth ships were visible on the sensors, but they kept their distance. They followed the human ship like curious children, watching but not attacking. "This is impossible," Lisa whispered. "We should be dead by now." Jake felt something he had never experienced before. The planet was not just scanning their ship. It was scanning them. He could feel an ancient intelligence touching his mind. Not invasively like the Etherians did, but gently, like a grandfather checking on a sleeping child. "It knows we are human," he said quietly. "What?" Carlos asked. "The planet's AI. It recognizes humans. Not our technology, not our ship, but us. Our minds, our way of thinking." Dr. Foster's instruments were going crazy with readings. "Captain, I am detecting structures under the surface that match patterns in human archaeological sites on Earth. This should not be possible. Kepler 442b is thousands of light years from Earth." "Maybe it is not impossible," Jake said. "Maybe there is a connection we never knew about." The UNS Defiance landed softly on the planet's surface near the entrance to the ancient complex. The massive stone and metal structure stretched into the distance, covered in symbols that seemed familiar, even though Jake had never seen them before. "We are down," Ryan reported. "All systems normal, no signs of hostile activity." Jake stood up and looked at his crew. "Lisa, you are with me. We are going inside. Carlos, keep the ship ready for immediate departure. Ryan, monitor all channels. And watch for the other fleets. Dr. Foster, I need you to translate anything we find." "The other fleets?" Lisa asked. Jake looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were moving closer, their formations changing from exploration to attack patterns. "They are not going to let us just walk away with the weapon. Admiral Zephyrian is probably already planning to bomb this entire area. They would destroy the weapon rather than let humans have it?" Dr. Foster asked. "They would destroy us rather than admit we succeeded where they failed," Jake corrected. As Jake and Lisa prepared to leave the ship, Carlos called out from his station. "Captain, I am detecting massive energy buildups from all 3 fleets. They are charging their weapons." Jake nodded grimly. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 30 minutes before they start shooting at each other and us." Jake strapped on his equipment and headed for the airlock. "Then we better hurry." Lisa followed him, checking her own gear. "Jake, what if you are wrong about this? What if the planet just let us land so it could study us before killing us?" Jake paused at the airlock controls. "Then we die knowing we tried something different. But I do not think that is what is going to happen." "What do you think is going to happen?" Jake looked out at the ancient complex waiting for them. "I think we are about to find out that humans are not as alone in the universe as we thought." The airlock opened and Jake Morrison stepped onto the surface of Kepler 442b. The air was thin but breathable, and the gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal. The ancient complex stretched before them, its entrance marked with symbols that seemed to pulse with their own light. Behind them, the UNS Defiant sat ready for departure. Above them, 3 alien fleets prepared for battle. And ahead of them, an ancient intelligence waited to judge whether humanity was worthy of its greatest secret. Jake looked back at Lisa, who nodded her readiness. Together, they walked toward the entrance of the complex while 30 minutes away. The most powerful fleets in the galaxy prepared to ensure that no human would leave this planet alive. The entrance to the ancient complex was massive, carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light. As Jake and Lisa approached, symbols along the walls began to glow with soft blue light. The heavy doors, each one the size of a building, slowly opened without making any sound. "Dr. Foster, are you getting this?" Jake spoke into his communicator. Amanda's voice crackled back from the ship. "The symbols are similar to ancient languages from Earth, but they are much older. I am seeing patterns that match cave paintings from 30,000 years ago. This should be impossible." Jake and Lisa stepped inside. The corridor was wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side, and the ceiling stretched up into darkness above them. Their footsteps echoed despite the soft material they wore on their boots. Emergency lights built into the walls activated as they walked, creating a path deeper into the complex. "Captain," came Carlos's urgent voice over the radio. "The alien fleets are moving into attack positions. The Valdris are charging their main weapons. I estimate 20 minutes before they start shooting." "Understood," Jake replied. "Keep monitoring their communications." The corridor split into 3 paths. Lisa studied her scanner. The left path leads down deeper underground. The right path curves back toward the surface. The center path goes straight ahead for about 2 kilometers. Jake closed his eyes and tried to feel what the ancient intelligence wanted from them. The sensation was still there, that gentle presence watching and evaluating. "The center path," he said. "Whatever is testing us wants us to go straight ahead." As they walked, the EIDER's walls around them changed. The black stone gave way to a lighter material that seemed to pulse with inner light. Pictures appeared on the walls, showing scenes of a great civilization. Jake saw beings that looked almost human working with advanced technology, building ships that could travel between stars and creating machines that could think for themselves. "Jake, look at this," Lisa said, stopping at one section of wall. The pictures here showed the same human-like beings facing a terrible enemy. Dark shapes came from the space between galaxies, destroying everything in their path. Entire worlds burned while the ancient people fought desperately to survive. "Dr. Foster, we need translation help," Jake called. Amanda's voice came back immediately. "I am seeing the images through your helmet cameras. The text below the pictures talks about the time of ending and the guardians who must come after. There are references to children of distant stars and those who remember the first lessons." They continued deeper into the complex. The corridor opened into a vast chamber with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. In the center of the room stood a single platform surrounded by rings of light. As Jake and Lisa approached, a hologram appeared above the platform. The figure was tall and human-like, but clearly not human. Its features were more refined, its skin had a slight blue tint, and its eyes held wisdom that came from living for thousands of years. When it spoke, the words appeared in Jake's mind rather than through his ears. "Welcome, children of Earth, we have been waiting for you." Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," Jake whispered. "It spoke directly into our minds." The hologram continued. "I am the last of the Terran ancients. My people explored the galaxy when your world was young. We seeded many worlds with life and we watched as different species grew and learned. But we always knew that one day, our distant cousins on a small, blue world would join us among the stars." Jake found his voice. "You knew about humans?" "We knew about the potential for humans. Your species carries the genetic memory of our people, though changed by millions of years of evolution. More importantly, you carry the same spirit that drove us to explore the unknown and protect the innocent." The chamber around them changed. The walls showed scenes of the galaxy as it existed now, with the great civilizations that ruled different sectors. The Valdris with their crystal cities, the Saurians with their perfectly organized fleets, the Etherians with their mental powers that could reshape matter. These civilizations have grown powerful, the ancient said, but they have lost something essential. They rely on their technology and their natural abilities. They have forgotten that true strength comes from the willingness to sacrifice for others, to face impossible odds and to keep trying when all hope seems lost. Is that what you are testing? Lisa asked. Testing and teaching, the ancient replied. The weapon you seek is not just a tool of destruction. It is a responsibility. The enemy that destroyed my people is returning. The dark ones from between, the galaxies are coming back, and only those who understand sacrifice can hope to stop them. Jake felt the weight of the ancient's words. What kind of test? The platform in the center of the room changed, showing 3 different paths leading away from the chamber. Above each path, symbols appeared that Jake somehow understood without translation. The first path tests courage, the ancient explained. You must face your greatest fear and continue forward despite it. The second path tests wisdom. You must choose between saving yourself and saving others. The third path tests determination. You must solve a problem that seems impossible with limited time and resources. What happens if we fail? Jake asked. You die, the ancient said simply. But more importantly, your species loses its chance to claim the inheritance we left for you. The weapon will remain locked away, and when the Dark Ones return, the galaxy will fall. Lisa looked at Jake. We have maybe 15 minutes before the alien fleet start their attack. Jake nodded and looked at the 3 paths. Each one disappeared into darkness with no way to know what lay ahead. He thought about his crew waiting in the ship above, about the alien fleets preparing to destroy them all, and about the responsibility the ancient was offering to humanity. Can we split up, he asked. Take different paths? The test must be completed by one person, the ancient replied. But the choice of which test to face is yours. Jake studied the symbols above each path. Courage, wisdom, determination. His whole life had been about proving that humans belonged among the galactic community. Now he had to choose which human quality would be tested in the ultimate trial. Jake, came Carlos's voice over the radio, filled with urgency. The Valdris have opened fire on the Saurian fleet. The Etherians are moving to attack position. You have maybe 10 minutes before they turn their weapons on the planet's surface. The middle path, Jake said suddenly. Wisdom, the test of choosing between saving yourself and saving others. Lisa started to follow him, but the ancient's hologram raised a hand. Only one may take the test. The other must return to the ship and prepare for what comes next. I am not leaving you, Lisa said firmly. You have to, Jake replied. If I fail, someone needs to get our people out of here. If I succeed, someone needs to help me figure out what to do with an ancient weapon that can destroy star systems. Lisa hesitated, then nodded. She understood command decisions even when they hurt. 10 minutes, Jake. Then I'm coming after you. Jake walked toward the middle path. As he reached the entrance, the ancient spoke one more time. Remember, Captain Morrison, the test is not about making the right choice. It is about understanding what the right choice costs and being willing to pay that price anyway. The path ahead was dark and silent. Jake activated the light on his helmet and walked forward. Behind him, he heard Lisa's footsteps heading back toward the ship. Above them, alien fleets were preparing to turn this ancient world into a battlefield. The corridor sloped downward and curved to the left. After a few minutes of walking, Jake emerged into another chamber. This one was smaller, with walls covered, and screens showing different scenes. As he watched, Jake realized he was looking at his own ship, his own crew. On one screen, Carlos was frantically working to boost the ship's shields. On another, Ryan was calculating escape routes while monitoring the alien fleets. Dr. Foster was still translating ancient text, trying to understand what Jake and Lisa had found. In the center of the chamber, 2 pedestals rose from the floor. On the left pedestal sat a small device that looked like a key. On the right pedestal was a larger device covered in warning symbols. As Jake approached, words appeared in his mind. spoken by the ancient's voice. The choice is simple, Captain Morrison. The device on the left will transport you and your crew safely away from this world. You will escape the alien fleets, return to Earth, and live normal lives. Your people will never know how close they came to inheriting the galaxy's greatest responsibility. Jake looked at the key-like device. It pulsed with warm, inviting light. The device on the right will give you control of this world's defenses and access to the weapon you seek. But using it will mark your species as the inheritors of our burden. The Dark Ones will know where to find you when they return. Your people will never again know peace. Jake stared at the second device. It was larger, more complex, and the warning symbols around it seemed to pulse with danger. Choose now, Captain. The alien fleets will begin their bombardment in 5 minutes. Your crew is in danger and only you can save them. Jake looked at the screen showing his people. Carlos, Lisa, Ryan, Amanda. They had followed him across the galaxy, trusted him with their lives, believed in him when no one else would. He could save them right now with the device on the left. Jake reached for the device on the right. The moment his fingers touched the complex mechanism, pain shot through his entire body. Knowledge flooded his mind. Star charts, weapon specifications, defense protocols, and the terrible truth about the coming darkness. He screamed as millions of years of information burned itself into his human brain. When the pain stopped, Jake found himself on his knees in the chamber. But he was no longer the same man who had entered. The ancient's knowledge lived in his mind now, and with it came understanding that changed everything. The choice is made, the ancient's voice whispered in his thoughts. You have accepted the burden. Now you must prove worthy of it. Jake stood up slowly. The device in his hands had changed, becoming part of him. He could feel the entire planet responding to his presence. The massive station that had pretended to be a dead world for millions of years was awakening to its true purpose. Captain Morrison, came Lisa's urgent voice over the radio. The alien fleets are firing on each other and the planet's surface. We need to leave now. Jake activated his communicator. I am coming back, but things are about to change dramatically. As Jake ran through the corridors back toward the surface, the ancient complex came alive around him. Lights activated in patterns he now understood. Defense systems that had slept for eons began to power up. The planet itself was revealing what it really was. Not a world at all, but a massive space station built to look like a planet. Jake emerged from the complex to find the sky filled with explosions. The 3 alien fleets were attacking each other as much as they were attacking the planet. Admiral Zephyrian's crystal ships fired beams of pure energy at Commander Thylos's stealth vessels. The Saurian ships responded with missiles that could track targets through hyperspace. High Counselor Veliana's Etherian fleet tried to disable both other fleets with psychic attacks while staying out of direct combat. But their weapons were having no effect on the planet's surface. Every energy beam, every missile, every psychic blast was absorbed by shields that were stronger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Jake reached the UNS Defiance to find his crew preparing for emergency departure. Lisa met him at the airlock, her face pale with worry. Jake, what happened down there? You look different. Jake stepped onto his ship, but he could barely focus on what Lisa was saying. His mind was processing information at an incredible rate. He could see the tactical situation with perfect clarity. He knew the exact capabilities of every ship in the 3 fleets. Most importantly, he knew how to use the ancient station's defenses. Carlos, Jake called as he reached the bridge. I need you to interface our computer systems with the planet's network. Use frequency 847.3 terahertz. Carlos stared at him. Captain, how do you know that frequency? It is not in any of our databases. Just do it, Jake said. He turned to Ryan. Prepare to lift off, but do not leave the planet's atmosphere. We are going to need to stay close to the surface. Dr. Foster looked up from her medical scanner. Jake, your brain activity is off the charts. What did they do to you down there? They gave me what I needed to protect humanity, Jake replied. He sat down in the captain's chair and closed his eyes. Carlos, is the interface ready? Connected, Carlos reported. But I am reading massive power buildups all across the planet. Jake opened his eyes and smiled. For the first time since joining the Galactic Defense Corps, he felt like he had the advantage. That is not a planet, Carlos. It is the most advanced space station ever built, disguised to look like a dead world. And now it is under human control. Through the ship's sensors and his mental connection to the ancient systems, Jake could see everything happening around Kepler 442b. Admiral Zephyrian's flagship was moving into position to bombard the area where the human ship had landed. Commander Thylos had deployed ground forces that were advancing on the complex entrance. High Counselor Veliana was attempting to breach the planet's defenses with concentrated psychic energy. Incoming transmission from Admiral Zephyrian, Lisa reported. Put him through, Jake said. The Admiral's crystal form appeared on the main screen, his rainbow patterns flashing with anger. Captain Morrison, you will surrender the weapon immediately and submit to Alliance authority. Your unauthorized actions have created a dangerous situation. Jake looked at the Admiral calmly. With respect, Admiral, I do not think you understand the situation. This weapon was never meant for the Galactic Alliance. It was meant for humanity. Impossible, Admiral. Zephyrian's patterns flashed brighter. Humans are a primitive species barely capable of space travel. You cannot possibly comprehend technology this advanced. Really? Jake asked. Carlos, activate Planetary Defense Grid Section 7. Carlos's fingers moved over his console, interfacing with systems he had never seen before but somehow understood. Around the planet, massive energy cannons rose from hidden positions in the surface. Each cannon was the size of a city block, and there were hundreds of them. The alien fleets immediately began evasive maneuvers, but the ancient weapons were faster than anything they had ever faced. Warning shots fired past each fleet. Energy, beams so powerful they created temporary tears in space itself. The next shots will not be warnings, Jake said calmly. You have 10 minutes to withdraw your fleets to a safe distance. Commander Thylos's hissing voice cut into the transmission. The human is bluffing. No single person can control defenses of this magnitude. Jake sighed. Carlos, target the Saurian ship Venomous Strike. Disable its engines. One of the planetary cannons rotated smoothly to track the Saurian vessel. A single, precisely controlled energy beam struck the ship's engine section. The beam was perfectly calibrated, powerful enough to disable the engines but not strong enough to destroy the ship or harm the crew. The Saurian ship went dead in space, drifting helplessly. How is this possible? High Counselor Veliana's musical voice joined the transmission. No single mind can interface with systems this complex. A human mind can, Dr. Foster said suddenly. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. I have been analyzing the captain's brain scans. His neural patterns are synchronizing with quantum frequencies that match theoretical models of ancient AI systems. Somehow human consciousness is compatible with their technology in ways alien minds are not. Jake nodded. The Terran ancients were our distant cousins. They built these systems to respond to minds like ours. Minds that can think creatively, under pressure, that can make sacrifices for others, that can adapt to new situations instead of following rigid programming. Admiral Zephyrian's patterns began flashing in what Jake recognized as fear. If humans control this technology, they could dominate the entire galaxy. We could, Jake agreed. But we will not. We have something none of your species seem to understand anymore. We know the difference between power and responsibility. Through his connection to the station, Jake could feel other ancient installations across the galaxy beginning to respond. Dozens of hidden bases, weapons platforms, and defense stations that had been dormant for millions of years were awakening to human control. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting in ways that would take the alien governments years to fully understand. Commander Thylos, withdraw your ground forces, Jake ordered. Admiral Zephyrian, move your fleet to minimum, safe distance. High Counselor Veliana, end your psychic attacks on the planetary systems. And if we refuse? Admiral Zephyrian asked. Jake's expression hardened. Then you will discover that humans can be far more dangerous than you ever imagined. But you will also discover that we are more merciful than you deserve. One by one, the alien fleets began to withdraw. The Valdris ships moved first, their crystal hulls reflecting the light from the planetary defense cannons. The Saurian fleet followed, leaving their disabled ship behind. The Etherian vessels hesitated the longest, but eventually they too pulled. Back to a safe distance, Captain, Ryan said quietly. What happens now? Jake stood up from his chair and looked out at the stars visible through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, the dark enemy was coming. The ancient intelligence that had destroyed the Terran ancients was returning to finish what it had started millions of years ago. Now we prepare, Jake said. The galaxy is about to face its greatest threat, and humanity just became its only hope. Lisa stepped beside him. Jake, are you still you? With all that ancient knowledge in your head, are you still the man who volunteered for an impossible mission because he believed humans had something to offer? Jake turned to look at his crew, the people who had followed him across the galaxy, who had trusted him when the entire universe said humans were not worth trusting. I am still me, he said, but now I know what we really are. We are not the youngest species in the galaxy. We are the inheritors of its oldest guardians, and it is time for the galaxy to learn what that means. Outside, the alien fleets maintained their distance, no longer laughing at the primitive humans. Fear had replaced mockery, but Jake knew that fear would soon give way to something else. When the dark enemy returned, when every advanced civilization in the galaxy faced extinction, they would need to learn to trust the species they had spent so long dismissing. The real test was just beginning. 3 weeks after the events at Kepler 442b, Jake Morrison stood once again on the observation deck of Nexus Prime Station. But everything had changed. Where once he had watched alien ships with envy, now those same vessels waited respectfully for human approval before docking. The species that had mocked him for being human now sought audiences with him because he was human. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called by Admiral Zephyrian himself. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy filled the great assembly hall. Jake wore his simple human uniform, but the small device attached to his collar connected him to defense networks across dozens of star systems. With a single thought, he could access weapons that made the most powerful alien fleets look like toys. Admiral Zephyrian approached Jake's position near the speaker platform. His crystal form seemed dimmer than usual, and his rainbow patterns moved slowly with what Jake now recognized as uncertainty. Captain Morrison, the Admiral said quietly, my government wishes to know your intentions. The discovery that humans control ancient defense networks has created fear throughout the galaxy. Jake looked at the crystal being who had once dismissed him as primitive. Admiral, my intentions are the same as they were 3 weeks ago. I want to protect innocent people from harm. But now you have the power to enforce your will on every civilization in the galaxy, Admiral Zephyrian continued. How do we know you will not use that power to conquer us? Before Jake could answer, Commander Thylo slithered up to join the conversation. The Saurians' yellow eyes fixed on Jake with the same intensity they had always held, but fear had replaced contempt. The human fleet grows stronger every day, Commander Thylos hissed. Ships with ancient technology arrive at Earth weekly. Your people are building weapons we cannot understand or defend against. Jake sighed. The 3 weeks since Kepler 442b had been the busiest of his life. Ancient installations across the galaxy had awakened to human control, each one containing technology that advanced human capabilities by thousands of years. Earth's governments were struggling to understand their new position as the galaxy's most powerful civilization. Commander, Jake said patiently, we are building defenses, not weapons of conquest. There is a difference. High Counselor Veliana floated toward them, her pale blue glow brighter than usual with mental effort. Captain Morrison, my people have sensed something troubling in the deep spaces between galaxies. Our most powerful telepaths report feeling a darkness approaching. Is this connected to your ancient inheritance? Jake nodded grimly. Yes, Counselor. The enemy that destroyed the Terran ancients is returning. Our deep space sensors estimate they will reach the outer rim of our galaxy in approximately 40 years. The three alien commanders exchanged glances. This was the first time Jake had given them a specific timeline for the threat he had spoken about. 40 years, Admiral Zephyrian repeated. What can we do to prepare? That depends, Jake replied, on whether you are willing to accept that the galaxy needs to change. The formal council session began an hour later. Jake sat at a table reserved for species leaders, but unlike the other representatives who brought large delegations, he was accompanied only by his crew from the UNS Defiance. Lisa Hayes sat beside him, now wearing the uniform of Earth's new Galactic Defense Force. Carlos Rodriguez had been promoted to Chief of Advanced Technology Integration. Dr. Amanda Foster served as Earth's Xenoarchaeological Advisor. Ryan Carter commanded the first squadron of ships equipped with hybrid human-ancient technology. Admiral Helen Clark had arrived from Earth 2 days earlier, wearing the new rank insignia of Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces. She sat behind Jake, representing Earth's government in the formal proceedings. The session opened with a holographic presentation that Jake had prepared. The main display showed the galaxy as it currently existed, with the territories of all major civilizations marked in different colors. Then the display changed, showing what would happen when the dark enemy arrived. The force approaching our galaxy calls itself the Void Swarm, Jake explained to the assembled representatives. They are not a single species, but a collection of machine intelligences that consume entire civilizations. They turn conquered worlds into factories that build more machines, creating an endless cycle of destruction and expansion. The hologram showed dark shapes moving through space, stripping entire star systems of all matter and energy. Planets, stars, even space itself seemed to dissolve as the Void Swarm passed through. The Terran ancients fought them for 1,000 years before they were finally defeated. Jake continued, but before they died, they created the defense networks and weapons caches that we have inherited. They also left instructions for preparing the galaxy to face this enemy when it returned. A Valdris representative stood up. Why should we believe these ancient records? How do we know this enemy even exists? Jake touched the device on his collar. The main display changed to show real-time sensor data from the deep space monitoring stations that had awakened under human control. Far beyond the galaxy's edge, dark shapes moved against the background of distant stars. Because they are already here, Jake said quietly. Scout forces have been probing our galaxy's outer rim for the past 5 years. The main force will arrive in 40 years, but the advanced scouts are already destroying isolated colonies and research stations. The assembly hall fell silent. Representatives whispered urgently among themselves in dozens of different languages. Commander Thylos was the first to speak. What do you propose we do? Jake stood up and activated a new holographic display. This one showed a completely different vision of the galaxy, one where the current borders and territories had been replaced by integrated defense zones. The Terran ancients learned that no single species can defeat the Void Swarm alone, Jake explained. Victory requires cooperation on a scale that our galaxy has never attempted. Every civilization must contribute their unique strengths to a unified defense network. High Counselor Veliana's musical voice carried clearly through the hall. You are asking us to give up our independence, to place our fleets under human command because you control ancient weapons. No, Jake replied firmly. I am asking you to save yourselves. The ancient weapons are powerful, but they are not enough. We need Valdris crystal technology for energy shields. We need Saurian stealth systems for reconnaissance. We need Etherian telepathic networks for communication across vast distances. And we need dozens of other species to contribute what they do best. Admiral Zephyrian's patterns flashed with confusion. But humans would control this defense network. Your species would become the dominant power in the galaxy. Jake looked around the assembly hall at representatives from hundreds of worlds. 3 weeks ago, these beings had seen humans as primitive newcomers, barely worthy of membership in galactic civilization. Now they feared human dominance because humans had proven themselves capable of wielding the galaxy's most ancient power. Admiral, Jake said, let me tell you what I learned from the Terran ancients. They became the dominant power in their time. just as you fear humans might become now. They controlled the most advanced technology, commanded the largest fleets, and ruled over dozens of species. And they lost. Jake paused, letting his words sink in. They lost because being the strongest is not the same as being right. The Void Swarm defeated them not through superior force, but because the ancients tried to fight alone. They believed their advanced civilization made them superior to everyone else. They learned too late that survival requires cooperation, not domination. Jake activated his connection to the ancient networks. Around the galaxy, dozens of defense installations came online, their energy signatures visible to every sensor in the assembly hall. The display of power was overwhelming. Humanity now controlled enough firepower to destroy every fleet in known space. Then, to the shock of every representative present, Jake began shutting the systems down. "I am placing all ancient defense networks under joint galactic control," Jake announced. "Representatives from every major civilization will have access to the command systems. Humans will serve as coordinators because we are compatible with the ancient technology, but every species will have a voice in how these defenses are used." The assembly hall erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and arguments in dozens of languages. Some accused Jake of weakness, others of deception. But slowly, as the implications of his announcement became clear, the shouting died down. Admiral Zephyrian was the first to understand. "You are giving up the power to rule the galaxy. I am accepting the responsibility to protect it," Jake corrected. "There is a difference." Over the following hours, the framework for the new Galactic Defense Alliance was established. Each species would contribute according to their abilities while maintaining their independence. Human coordinators would work with alien specialists to integrate technologies that had never been combined before. Ancient knowledge would be shared freely to accelerate the development of new defensive systems. Most importantly, the rigid thinking that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia would be replaced by human-style adaptability and innovation.